Oh, that's right. I guess we'll get started.
So every day I have to clean the filter.
Right.
Blanket.
Like virtually everyone here would use it to have one. Go get one. We'll just have
No numbers, and I'm not going to have all of that. All right, you ready, Tara? All right, well, welcome everybody. This is our budget press conference for 2013's general fund budget, general fund budget and townwide spending. This budget was very difficult, and one of the things that I'm going to say, it hasn't gotten any easier. 2% tax cap has made it even painfully difficult. And the cuts that we are now making to keep us within the 2% tax cap, I think when you see them, you realize that we're now cutting bone. It's not the fat anymore. I want to say that from my perspective, I agree with the 2% tax cap from the state of New York. The problem is that they have not provided any relief for the town in terms of unfunded mandates, in terms of issues with the health insurance going up 15–16%, the exclusion for the pension benefits is not a complete exclusion, and so the costs to the town have gone up astronomically, but the amount of the levy that we can increase does not. So Bill, if we go to the first slide, I want to explain to you where we were over a 3-year cycle. And what I want you to take from this slide is if you look at 2000, where we started in 2010, we had a budget of $43,278,000. And then as you go up progressively from here, these are the things that increased our budget for the past 3 years. If the town hadn't done anything, the town general fund budget would be $49,487,000. That would be the town budget, just with the mandatory increases and no spending cuts. This is a 3-year cycle, so we didn't, everything that we are showing here, we didn't cut in 1 year, the next overhead will show that. When you get to the high point, we start to show you what we've cut and where the 2013 tentative budget is. The 2013 tentative budget is $44,878,250. What I want you to take from here is that there was a 1% spending increase over 3 years. Cost of living for this year went up 2.8%. I think last year it was 1.7, Bill, something like that. So the town spending has decreased relative to cost of living. Actually, that's probably a bad way. I don't like when elected officials say that. Town spending's increased below the rate of the cost of living or the inflationary rate in 1%. So we as town board members should be very proud that we've been able to do this. That has not come without some pain. Bill, if you go to the next. This is a picture of the 2013 budget. We started out with $43,865,000. When we first started meeting with the budget, and we spoke to the employees and we spoke to the department heads, the expenses of the budget go up in this direction until you get to $46,206,000. That's what we were faced with in August, that the budget, through its health insurance, through its retirement system, through its contractual expenses, and through its debt service, increased the debt service of think it was $3,377,000. That's the increase. That's what the general fund budget was going to be. The only way the town could withstand that is to levy a fairly significant tax increase. I will say to you that this town is facing a 14% tax increase. It has been facing a 14% tax increase since 2009. What we've been doing is cutting every place we can and spending deficit spending using our reserve funds. So that's a scary place to be, because that number required us to take, I think it was about $5 million out of the reserve funds to balance the budget. At the end of this year, there's just a little less than $9 million in reserve funds. Folks, I have 3 years. We have 3 years to balance this budget. Every $300,000 is 1%, roughly. So on $1 million, you're looking at more than a 3% budget increase. So if you just do the math for this year, we're taking $3 million, a little less than $3 million out of the reserve funds. It doesn't take a rocket science to figure out that's roughly a 10% tax increase. When you throw the other unfunded mandates on, the town at any given year would be facing the 12 to 14% tax increase. There are some very positive signs in the economy right now. I will tell you that we are on track. We increased mortgage tax receipts last year. We anticipated them coming in about $200,000 higher, and they will. We should exceed that. We budgeted for this year, last year for this year, $900,000 for mortgage tax receipts. So we're on a $200,000 trajectory increase. We budgeted for next year $1.1 million. I'm very confident that we're going to hit that mark. In fact, my personal opinion, seeing what I see in the real estate market, is that I think we're going to exceed that mark. If you look at the housing costs, you look at the slight uptick in housing costs, you look at the slight downtick, if you will, in the mortgage rate costs and the volume of closings, I believe that 1.1 it may be a conservative number. All the other revenues in the town we left flat, or flat or on par with what we had seen in 2012. So what we did is we had to go through and we made cuts. We cut salaries to the tune of $638,000. We cut equipment, $161,000. Contractual services, $347,000, and benefits, $181,000. There are 3 jobs eliminated in this budget. I'm going to challenge the board possibly to put 1 part-time job back in the budget. That's going to be a challenge that the board has to undertake. The positions that were eliminated were the Youth Bureau Director, Ray Coyne, the Police Chief are here. They've indicated to me that between the JAB function and the Recreation Department function, Youth Bureau will continue almost seamlessly, that you're not going to notice a difference in Youth Bureau. That was a significant savings. We cut a senior town investigator, another significant savings, and we cut a personnel officer, another significant savings. If there's a way to do something, again, I challenge the board. There are things in here that could be looked at to at least return one of these positions to a part-time position. That is something that is going to take some doing. When they get into the budget, they're going to realize how deeply we've cut. Bill, if you could change the overhead. This is. I never want to talk about this again, but this is the last time. Oops. They're in a different order. This I'll talk about. This is the debt savings for the town when we refinanced our debt. If you look at the blue, this is the total debt savings. If we did not refinance our debt, this is where our debt service would be. It's about a $200,000 savings per year, every year. So the town, from most accounts, except for the general fund, the town looks very financially healthy. The problem is that the general fund is laboring under severe debt, and it's going to be a little while till we get out of it. Maybe the next overhead. Bill's trying to mix it up for me a little bit. But this is the residents, the town board, the accounting department, and everybody that had a hand in this should be very happy, because that's $200,000 for the life of the debt. Next slide. Okay, this is the one. After this, I'm never going to talk about this. I'm tired of talking about the landfill. Everybody knows about the landfill. But we had to sell the remaining landfill debt in 2011. If you look at the landfill debt is depicted on the red line, and that's the total town debt. The total town debt service would only be about total town debt would be a little over $1 million, about $1.2 million. That's the town debt. The remaining debt is all landfill debt. If the town didn't have this landfill debt, obviously we would be right there with Supervisor Thronholz, able to deliver tax cuts, or at least keep the tax savings at a minimum. The issue for us, and the reason that we're going to bring it up this year, is the debt service $450,000 landfill debt for this year, or added debt service was $450,000. Even when we sold the debt in November of 2011, that debt service came due interest only this year, and principal and interest next year. That added $450,000. So now, if you look at if you think about what I said before. The total amount that we were taking out of the reserves was $2.6 million. You saw all the increases to the debt service, or all the increases to the general fund. The problem is that the town has to absorb that $400,000. The only way we absorb that $400,000 is by taking out more reserve funds. So again, I don't want to talk about the landfill debt again after this. We know what it is. We know what it's done to this town. It's behind us in terms of where we're going. Bill, next slide. And this is where we're going. And what the interesting part about this is our future landfill debt and our general fund debt. Boy, who's ever the supervisor in 2023's got it made. Because look at that trajectory. It is just phenomenal. But you can take, we can take solace in the fact that there is some debt service relief. If you look, the high is 2013. It's coming down. You've got a significant debt service relief, well, not significant, but you've got debt service relief in here. And what's interesting is, at some point, we do have to do something with the armory. The town hall is overcrowded. We're selling the East Lawn building. Felicia, I do have some very good news, I think, so we can talk about that later. But we're selling the East Lawn building. The town is scaling back some of the things that they're doing. Some of the buildings that we have, we're going to be accessing. But in that 2000, if we design the Justice Court Police Department complex in 2013, 2014, in 2015, the town may be in a position to sell debt to rebuild the armory. And folks, that is a public safety issue. Somebody recently interviewed me from Riverhead Local about the Justice Court. The Justice Court is not safe. The design of the Justice Court was antiquated the day it was built. The jail cells are not safe in the police department. It is a public safety issue. It is something that has to get done. So there is if you were looking for the silver lining, in 2015, we may be in a position to do something. Let's hope. Okay, next slide. This is an interesting slide, and what I want to try to what we're trying to depict here is, if you look at the blue line, this is health insurance, and this is the New York State retirement system. The blue line indicates the 2013 base. This is where we would be in 2013 if there was no increase. This is the increase. The red bar indicates increase of your health insurance and your retirement system costs to the town of Riverhead. I wrote that down, but it's in the other one. Do we not have that figure?
It's about $700,000 each.
$700,000 each. And there's another slide coming up, but the most that we can, you can switch, Bill. So the most that we can increase our tax levy is $975,000, roughly $975,000. So the town was asked to absorb. It's not quite accurate, but if you look at, this is your 2% tax cap, and that little part is your pension exclusion. So if you look over here, these are the mandate costs. So Bill, I had it written down in another spot. What's the difference? $750,000?
We have $920,000 increase in tax revenue.
Right, $920 in tax revenue.
2%
I thought it was $975. Okay.
Okay. And the retirement is $1,400,000 change. It's about a $500,000 gap between what we are allowed to collect in revenues and what we have to pay both retirement companies.
So there's a $500,000 gap. If you get back to what I originally said, every $300,000 is a 1% tax increase. This represents combined about 3% tax increase across all funds, correct? We're staying within our tax cap amount, our legal tax cap, but the tax increase is still 3%. If you wanted to absorb that, you would have to go to about 4 3/4% just to stay even with your health insurance and your retirement system. That is not taking into any consideration cost of living increases that are contractually required, the town's contractually required to give, or any other increases to the cost to the town. So I show this not as this is the same picture, town after town after town. This is not an indictment of Riverhead's future. This is Tom Croce's dealing with this, Bill Wilkinson's dealing with this. The tax cap is not sustainable. The only way to deal with the tax cap or to deal with this is to grow your way out. Now we had some things, so I'm going to ask Laverne, our assessed value flat?
Flat.
Our assessed value, thank the Lord, is flat. We were looking at a very slight increase in assessed valuation, but there was some SCAR hearings yesterday, and so as a result of those SCAR hearings, our assessed valuation is flat. What that means is zero growth in this town. Even last year, we had a slight increase in growth. We were really worried about negative assessed valuation, which may hit us next year. The reason that we may not have the problem is if Costco builds next year and Walmart builds, keep your fingers crossed, that will add assessed valuation to the town. The problem for us is the condominiums. They're in a cycle where the condominium grieve their taxes. They usually get a reduction in their taxes or a reduction in their assessed valuation. And I don't know how that balance is going to come out. But I'm very happy that we just had flat growth. Would have been nice, but negative assessed valuation would have been just terrible. Bill, next slide. This is an interesting depiction here. Most residents are going to see, I'm going to say, it could be either, depending on where you live in town, you may be seeing an actual decrease in your town expenditures. if you look at this line, what we're depicting here is the garbage district. The town 2012 tax levy is depicted here on the right, and it's just a little bit above $45 million. The town 2013 total tax levy is $45 million. Each one of these, you've got the blue as the general fund, the highway fund, street lighting, water district, etc., etc. Where the town residents are going to see a huge savings is the garbage district taxes with $356 per household. They're going down to $270 a household. That is going to be a very significant savings to the taxpayers. There's also, in the budget, there's going to be a reduction in a couple districts, one of them being the Riverhead Ambulance District. We are on track to implement the medical billing for the ambulance in 2013, so we're anticipating a reduction there. And so for the average resident, last year when I took my tax bill and I looked at it and I looked at different areas, I actually saw a net reduction in my taxes, and I randomly pulled other people's tax bills, not randomly, just people that I knew in my office, and looked at their tax bills, and I actually saw reductions in their town taxes. So even though the total tax rate is going up an average of 3% with these special districts, we saw overall town tax decreases. And I think, Bill, is that the last one? All right. I don't know. I'm sure there are questions. We'll try to answer them. Any questions? Yes.
Just the numbers that are never there. This year's budget, the proposed budget, and the tax rate.
Yes, you want. Bill, can you give him?
We have some copies. I'll make one right after the one written down.
You just want to know the combined rate across all districts?
Presumably, if I live in Riverhead, which I don't, I want to know what my tax bill is going to be next year.
Well, it's not that simple. The combined rate across all districts are about 3%, correct?
The way we normally show it is the top three, which every taxpayer pays into, and that would be general fund, highway, and street lighting. So we're talking about a levy here because that's what the tax cap is is on the levy. The levy is 2.94% over all of those. Okay.
But that's better. Use 2.94%, not the rate.
That's the rate.
But that's the tax levy rate increase. If you look at the different districts, there are some decreases in districts, so it depends on which district you're in. All residents are in the refuse and garbage district, so they will see that decrease. But other districts like water and sewer and things like that, it depends on where you live. So depending on where you are, you may
and this
one question at a time.
Okay. This meets the permissible 2%.
Yes.
Cap by taking all the deductions up?
Yes.
When you're, there's two questions. When you're wrestling with Riverhead's future growth, and you're looking at FCAL and what's going to happen, and you're looking at consolidations and what's going to happen, at what point, how many years out, do you think it'll be before some real relief will be available?
I think the most immediate relief that we will see is if the housing market returns to what I'm going to call a functional normal. The town typically received about $2 million of mortgage tax receipts for many, many, many years until you had the housing bubble and they went really up high. But for the most part, $2 million in mortgage tax relief. If we can get to a normal housing market, that's going to add, say, another $900,000 to $1 million. That's huge relief for us because of the debt using the Grumman sale proceeds, the one-shot revenues. Grumman is really where it's at. The construction in Grumman is really where it's at. We are in the DEC. We've got some very favorable things that have happened with the DEC recently. The DEC has actually come up with a number of developable area, which is something that we've been striving to work with them on the number. We're not completely in agreement, but it's somewhere between 750 acres and 800 acres of developable area. So that is going to be the real push for the town, both in the sale of the property and having not the property on the tax rolls.
Okay. And the other one, in terms of personnel, you're talking about cutting to the bone. Have you reached the level where the town can't cut any more jobs?
I don't know that you've reached the level that the town can't cut any more jobs. You're just cutting. Right now, you're not eliminating essential services, but you're cutting the staff required to do the essential services. It comes down to do more with less until we can do everything with nothing, I guess. We haven't gotten to everything with nothing, but we are cutting key staff members in areas where you wouldn't normally want to cut if everything was okay.
Okay, thank you.
Denise?
Total townwide spending for 2013, what is that?
Billy,
All funds combined. And what percentage did you calculate the percent over there?
It's almost $89 million. Total spending. That's every fund that the town has control over. And that's what these rates are also, the funds that the town has control over. The outside districts like school districts and fire districts that the town does have control is not included in that.
And compared to last year?
It was 90. 90, I think we looked at it. You know, since
Bill's
Bill's talking, we might as well stand together.
It was over 90 million, 90.5 million, something
Yeah,
like that.
I just wrote it this morning, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Go ahead, nothing more. Spending for the total town.
I'm looking at that. What?
Tax revenue. One of those numbers haven't given us those.
That's last year?
That's
just right here.
Well, that's the percentage increase in rate. And
Okay,
everything else
yeah.
that we don't
Yeah,
have.
yeah.
You have copies of those?
Yes.
Do you have the dollar amount for how it's going to impact each family approximately?
That's what I was saying. It's very difficult to determine because when you're looking at the fact that the garbage district rate has come down, the town did a tremendous job. Cash and Associates put together a bid spec, and we were able to save a tremendous amount of money on the garbage. Staff worked very hard to get that contract done, and we got it in at the tail end of last year. And we put a garbage district tax of $356 in because between Anne-Marie Prudenti and Jill Lewis and Cash and Associates, the determination was made. We didn't want to give the absolute lowest figure because we hadn't awarded the contract yet, and we wanted to make sure that that contractor was a qualified contractor. This year, we have a great history with them, and we were able to deliver the full savings. So that in it, what was that? 356 and what's that? 270 to 270. So that's significant. And if you're in the ambulance district, that's going to come down a little bit. If you're in some of the water districts, some of the tax levies come off. So it's difficult to pinpoint exactly. I know what you guys always want is what's the average assessed value of house going to pay an increase in taxes, and that's not really a real number because it depends on where you are.
Well, you said median. What would be the median change for the typical house?
Well, we haven't calculated that. The assessors just finished their last STAR meeting yesterday and gave us some updated numbers. So we have the rates, but we weren't able to calculate what an average household would be. We can do some of those numbers when we get that preliminary.
Yeah. The reason that this is happening today at 10 o'clock is because your SCAR. Mason Laverne, what time did your SCAR hearings end yesterday?
Just after 12.
So that's when he got the last bit of information that he had to plug into the budget, and until that happened, we didn't have a complete picture.
Those are your rates on
That'd be
G.
2.94. How does that? What exemptions allow that to?
2 point. Okay, one person at a time. Oh, go ahead. I'll
I
take
just want to
it.
get the accurate number for the tax levy, it's approximately 3%.
Tax levy is 2.94%. That's the same question over all budget lines. Over highway, street lighting, and general fund. Those affect all three. Those three funds affect every household. The exclusions are the health insurance, which there was one of those overheads showed the health insurance exclusion about $300,000.
The retirement exclusion was...
Sorry,
the
retirement
exclusion was $180,000 for the general fund. So it's 750,000 of our 2% increase, and the retirement exclusion brought us to $920,000 of tax levy.
So is retirement, what was the other one? Retirement and health insurance?
Well,
No, it's not, no, I misspoke. It's retirement.
The two mandated costs are retirement and health insurance. They both went up about a little more than $700,000. The retirement, there's an exclusion in the tax cap for retirement expenses, and that exclusion is about $780,000 in the general fund. So we have a $750,000 tax increase, which is our 2%, and then the exclusion brings us up to $920,000 tax increase in the general fund.
So retirement was the only exclusion.
Yes.
Retirement and brick and mortar, but
Right.
we didn't have any brick and mortar because the assessment was flat. Anybody else?
Yeah, I think a nice way to say it. It's a math thing. You break out your town general fund increase at 2.6%, and all those numbers are consistent on the last page. On the first page of the document, you look at you put down the total town operating cost at $88.9 million, and there's no comparison to what the total town operating costs are this year.
Yeah, there's no comparison. That just gives
So
you
what is this year's operating cost?
That is the 89, the 88.5, the 88.9.
This is the 2013 appropriations, 88,931.
Right.
So what is the 2012 appropriations?
That was the $9 million.
Yeah, it was 90,200,000 or 300,000, something like that. 374, 90,374. Thank you.
So the total cost of government's gone down. That's what you should be thinking about. What the taxpayer should be thinking about. The total cost of operating Riverhead's government has gone down.
But can I just, the 9374 from last year was the appropriations. Was spending different from appropriations? I know when you look at the budget, it has what was appropriated in the actuals. How does that compare?
Well, if from last year's audit, we have those final ones. Obviously, we don't have 2012. In the general fund alone, we budgeted for a $2.6 million application of surplus. We actually only had to take $1.3 million out, which means our revenues were 1.3 lower than our expenditures. So we pulled $1.3 million instead of $2 million shipped out of fund balance.
But even though you don't have the audited amounts from 2012, you've got to run
We
the
went
calendar.
line by line, and I will say that more than 80% of the lines were within the budgeted amounts. There were very few that were over the budgeted amounts. So we're on track. The budget's on track to perform at $2.6 million.
There are a lot of seasonal numbers in there and other numbers that where, you get a bill for September in October that hasn't been paid yet, so we won't know until January when we have 12 months, but we are not over significantly or under in revenue significantly in any of the lines that we budgeted for this year. So as a supervisor said, we're probably going to be around the $2.6 million that we budgeted to take out.
Unless somebody makes a nice big gift to the town.
Unless something changes in the last quarter.
It is also significant that we did reduce the chargebacks across basically all lines. The chargebacks in the highway department were reduced by $250,000, and that money was put into a road paving account. And in fact, Gio was here. The highway department, I think, in my memory, and I think Bill, we agreed that we have the highest amount in road paving that we've ever had. It's $600,000 in the road paving account, and when you combine that with the CHIPS money of $300,000, which is something that should be used for road paving, the town now has an account of $913,000 for road paving this year and every year without bonding. And that is critical for George Woodson to know that he's got close to $1 million. In addition, we put $100,000 in. We increased. He asked for $100,000 for drainage projects, and we gave him the full $100,000. Actually, we increased that slightly. I think there's a little uptick in that one.
The final number.
Yeah, we had put it the 100 that he had asked. So, with any luck, as we go through next year, that $1 million, I'm hoping is somewhere in that $1 million is the right number to pave every year. The problem with the highway department is, quite frankly, the town got really behind on the roads, and I think George is doing a good job of keeping us current, so that's a good thing.
You said this, you might have said this before, the amount of fund balance that you're using to offset the tax rate is?
Just under $3 million. Was it $2.9 million?
Yes, look on the first page, $2,978,950 on page E, if you have it.
Right. We have, what's critical to your readers and your listeners and the viewers is there's 3 years left, not even 3 years left to turn this around. And it's not a good, it's not a good thing to be using fund balance like this. By the grace of God and by the good work of this town, we've been able to bond everything that we need to bond. So if everything stays the same over the next 3 years, we don't have to go to the bond market to sell bonds, and Moody's won't be looking at the fact that we're eroding our fund balance at a faster rate than we had hoped. So that's a fantastic thing.
Yesterday with the audit presentation, they said something like you, regarding the fund balance, you hadn't spent everything you...
We spent 1.3 of the 2.6. We had a large revenue last year that offset. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was another large one-shot revenue. It wasn't that the town's budget outperformed itself, that we cut spending by $1.3 million, because there really wasn't that much to cut. It was that a large revenue stream came in, and instead of using fund balance, we used that one-shot revenue. So it's not that we were $1.3 million closer to being balanced. We just used another one-shot revenue as income and didn't have to use the fund balance.
So were you able to use that this year or not use it
No.
this year? You didn't know about that at the time this was done, or what?
I didn't know about that revenue stream in 2012, and it's not a recurring revenue stream, and I don't remember what it was. It was either
It was a settlement.
MTBE
It
settlement.
was one that you would have had to know in 2010 was going to happen in 11,
Right.
and it wasn't one that we would have budgeted for.
How much you get in that, MTBA?
$800,000 or $900,000.
MTBA.
So what happens is I don't want to budget anything dishonestly. So we could easily have made up one-shot revenues, and we didn't put the sale of the East Lawn building in as income to the town. That will go into the fund balance. We are mindful of the fact that some of these buildings cost us $20,000, $30,000 a year to operate. Those lines were cut a little bit. So there are, we did make cuts, but there's no
revenue for the sale.
Right. We put a straightforward budget.
Just since the town board is here, I got to ask them one question. How much work do you think you can do with this? What kind of changes are possible to make?
Well, the system presented to us. We had no input.
It's a supervisor budget.
So it's hard to answer right now if you really take a close look at it. But I personally see a few things I think we can actually tweak and make some changes.
I'm all for more cuts. So.
Yes, no.
If you find more cuts, we need them.
Jody, how can you make it better?
I agree with George. We have to look at the budget. We have to go through line by line. I know that one of the positions that's being cut from the budget is funded by grant money, so I don't know if we're going to still get that grant money if we have a part-time person doing the job or two people that are sharing the job. So, there's a couple things that I'd like to look at. I think that our youth and seniors are very important, and I think that to cut the youth bureau position, I would like to look at that and see what we're actually getting in grant funding to fund that position. So that's right off the bat, just from what I've heard today.
I have to concur. I haven't had a chance to go through it, but I can tell you I think my main thing is to make sure that essential services that really benefit the taxpayers have to be in place. They're going to get, if paying the tax, the services that really affect them should not be part of the equation. Really.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else? Thank you for coming. Enjoy the rest of the day.